All right, good evening, class. Now you may be wondering, where's Professor Meadows? Well, he's not in today, so I'm gonna be your substitute. And my name is Shmem. You don't gotta call me Mr. Shmem or anything like that. It's not that big a deal. But of course, I'm sure you may know what class you're in. This is JoJo 101. This is an entry-level course, and I don't know what Mr. Meadows was teaching you the last time you were in here, so I have a little lesson of my own. If you want to look at the board now, I'm going to be telling you stands that can beat Wonder View. Now, this is not a lesson that was given to me by by my higher-ups or any other instructors. No, this is made by me. This is all opinion, or rather, I think it's facts, because I've studied each and every stand in this series. Now, of course, this is an entry-level class, and some of you may not know what stands are, and that's okay, because I have a slide for that. So what is a stand? Well, a stand is a physical manifestation of a person's fighting spirit. Think of it like fighting with your personality. So each stand is unique to their individual user. Of course, there are some examples where some abilities are very similar to others, but most of the time they follow that rule of individuality. The stands are named such because they stand next to their users. Stands cannot be seen by normal people except for when they can, and damage taken by a stand is reflected back to the user except for when it isn't. Of course, a lot of these rules are put in place just to be broken because, this series is just fun like that. So who or what is Wonder of You? Well, Wonder of You is the stand of Toru, who's one of the main villains of Part 8, JoJolion, and his main ability is his control over Calamity, which is this natural force in the world of JoJo's, right? And anybody who chooses to pursue either the stand or the user with negative intentions will have events that defy logic happen around them to hurt them or even go so far as to kill them. Think of it like Final Destination, I think, is the best comparison that I could make. But besides that, the stand can also pass through solid objects. It can appear in multiple places at once. The stand even persists after the user's death, as it has like a headless form, and it can even be seen by normal people as it takes this human form, which is something that no other stand that can be seen by normal people, no other stand that has that ability has ever done that, which is horrifying to me. Wonder of View's only known weakness is if the stand approaches the target instead of, the other way around. And it has been said by Hirohiko Araki, the creator of the series, that it might be one of, if not the strongest stand in the series. So that's what we're going up against. Here's the groundwork. This is the opponent. This is what we're dealing with. So getting the obvious one out of the way, let's get Soft and Wet Go Beyond. So it's the stand that beats Wonder of You, of course. So Soft and Wet on its own is these bubbles that can do all kinds of crazy stuff, right? And they're apparently not bubbles at all. They're lines that are spinning really fast. And Go Beyond is to spin that line so quickly that it ceases to exist and nullifies the whole thing that Wonder of You does. Which is crazy. But anywho, got that one out of the way. Let's go to Part 1, Phantom Blood. So there's a lot of really solid characters in Part 1, right? You got Jonathan. I mean, you got Jonathan right there. You got Dio. Who else? You got Speedwagon. You got Baron Zeppeli. I mean, even Tarkus, and there's nobody. There's not a single person that can defeat Wonder of You in Part 1. I mean, not even, I would say, Dio Brando could do anything. I think if Dio were to start walking towards Wonder of You in broad moonlight, the sun would start coming up. But as far as all of the mortal characters, they wouldn't understand what was going on before it's too late. So, anyway, part 2, Battle Tendency. There's a lot of really solid characters in Battle Tendency as well, but there's only one that I could think of that could really, I think, definitively beat Wonder of You, and I think this will showcase just the kind of feats required to go up against something such as this. And I'm talking about none other, of course, than Ultimate Lifeform Cars. Now, Ultimate Lifeform Cars is not a stand, which is fine, because, you know, Wonder of You has a human form that anybody can see, but he has so much stuff going on with him. He has nigh absolute immortality. He contains the DNA of every living organism to ever walk the earth, and with that, he has reactive evolution, so he can just become or just take attributes of all of these different organisms. He has Hamon, which probably wouldn't be that useful. He has close range and ranged attacks, and then if we're talking about, cars from George Joestar, the light novel, then he's even more cooked, because, I mean, look at that. In the bottom right, there's multiple of him, and he has all these different stands. It's a whole thing, but no, Ultimate Lifeform Cars definitely is the first one, I think. But moving on to part 3, Stardust Crusaders, we have, I mean, so many good characters. I mean, right here that we're looking at already. You know, we got Kakyoin and Avdol and Polnareff and, you know, Joseph, obviously. I think Hermit Purple would probably do something. Of course, he's not on this list, because on the list is actually Star Platinum and The World, because they both do generally the same thing. They both stop time, and they both hit hard. And of course, The World is wielded by a vampire, so he can stop time for a little bit longer, but I think it'd be a pretty easy layup for these two. But outside of that, because that seems like a given. I think a lot of the time manipulation ones you're going to see and go, yeah, that makes sense. But what about, and bear with me, the Fool. The Fool is, I mean, it's physically made of sand. It's not like a spirit kind of thing. So the rule back a few slides where the damage is reflected back to the user does not apply to this, because he's made of sand, and he can also use this sand molding ability to create various illusions. Not that the stand or Toru would necessarily, fall for these tricks, but, you know, it's something in his arsenal. But moving on, we have Death 13. This is the stand that tried to kill Kakyoin in his sleep while he was in this dream world, because that's the ability of the stand. If you fall asleep, then you enter this dream world. It's kind of like Freddy Krueger, closest comparison. But the loophole with this ability is if you fall asleep with your stand out, then the stand comes with you. But I don't think, and this is up for debate, obviously, if you're taking notes, I don't know if the Wonder of You would have control over Calamity in this dream world, but that's a good question. I think that's a good thing to think about. But obviously, if Toru just falls asleep, then it's done. But even if Wonder of You enters the dream world with him, I don't know. I guess that's a good talking point, if you will. We have Cream. So Cream is like a big soft and wet go beyond. He's just this big bubble that annihilates anything in front of it. He's just this little black hole, right? And as you can see on the bottom right, you have just what a hit from Cream looks like with Avdol's arms. May God rest his soul. And overall, he also ceases to exist, so he fits the same rulings of why Soft and White Go Beyond beats him to begin with. But moving on, we have Part 4, Diamond is Unbreakable. And, I mean, again, on this cover, there's a lot of really solid characters that could probably go toe-to-toe with Wonder of You. I mean, you got Koichi, you have, Yukiko and Josuke, and the guy with Surface all the way back there, and then you got Okuyasu's dad. But Killer Queen, there's a lot going on with this stand. So Killer Queen, just the regular one, is probably not going to be the most useful of his arsenal here. So base Killer Queen is the ability to turn anything that the stand touches into a bomb that he can detonate by doing the thumb button dealy. But you could probably set like a trap, I guess, but overall it's not going to be the most useful thing in the world. But Sheer Heart Attack, I think, is the ace in the hole, because Sheer Heart Attack is indestructible, and it can explode at literally as many times as it wants. So I think that's definitely the stronger thing in his lineup. We have Stray Cat, which is technically its own thing, but it has something to do with cats, So you have invisible air bubbles, and he at one point uses those air bubbles and turns those into bombs. And then you got Bites the Dust. So Bites the Dust is a little more confusing, so he has to place that ability on a person, and then once somebody learns about Kira's true identity from, let's say it's just on Hayato again, then Toru's stuck in this exploding death loop. Definitely Sheer Heart Attack, I think. I think he's got it. Moving on, we have Cheap Trick. This is where it's going to get a little weird, right, class? So Cheap Trick is a little confusing. It's very simple, but it's a little confusing at first. So the actual abilities of Cheap Trick is simply just the ability to talk. And it's universal, so he can talk to animals as well as people. But the real horror comes from the fact that it passes itself to other people by way of people looking at the current user's back. And what does Wonder of You do, ladies and gentlemen? That's right, he walks away, thus showing his back, which means if, he were to look at somebody that had Cheap Trick, and then that person just kind of flopped over dead and shriveled up, Wonder of You wouldn't know what to do, or Toru wouldn't know what to do, and then he'd just start, doing the thing that he does, which is walking away so that other people can look at him, and you know what happens next? That's right. He shrivels up and dies, and Cheap Trick goes somewhere else. So that's definitely, I think, what would happen in a fight between Cheap Trick and Wonder of You. Anyway, Superfly is one of the craziest layups I think I've ever heard of, but whenever you really put some thought into it, it makes a lot of sense. So first off, he's an electrical tower. He's not going anywhere. Now, of course, since this tower cannot pursue, that would be the responsibility of Toru or Wonder of You to make its way over to the Superfly electrical tower, so that the user of Superfly, whose name escapes me right now, I'm terribly sorry, can leave Superfly and leave Toru there to be stuck in there pretty much forever, because at this point, anybody else, if they are going after Toru, Calamity is going to hit them before they even make it to the tower, so he's kind of signed his own death warrant in a way. But moving on, we have Part 5. Yeah, here it comes. Yeah, here it comes, folks. Gold Experience Requiem. This is one of the most obnoxious goddamn things I have to hear every time I talk about power scaling and hypothetical stand fights, everybody goes, well, they can't be GER, can't be Goku. No shit. Because the ability of GER is to reduce any action to 0. It doesn't happen. So you expect Calamity to happen? No. Giorno walks at him. Nothing is gonna happen. Of course GER lays this dude up. It's not even like a thought. Anyway, moving on, we have King Crimson and Epitaph. It's Future Vision and the ability to skip time, and there's a little demonstration at the bottom of just how King Crimson works. Pretty simple. He could just kind of pass through any calamity that happens, and he could even probably see major calamity before it even happens with Epitaph. But next slide, we got Chariot Requiem. So this one, it renders pretty much any living thing around it unconscious for a little bit, and then swaps souls of everything else around it. This one's really jank. This one's a hard one to explain because there's just so much going on with it. Because it's not just Freaky Friday. There's this whole thing about if you attack it, your soul or your stand starts attacking you, which would be a really bad thing to happen with Toru because, but also this guy walks away. He does not pursue. He's another one of those ones that does not do the pursuing. And even if he does, let's say Wonder of You picks up the arrow. If he's still holding the arrow, then maybe he'll start running, but this guy right here, that's not his form. You can damage that as much as you want, and you're not gonna hurt it. But I don't think he's gonna know about the, light ball thing behind his head. I'm trying really hard to explain Chariot Requiem, but I think definitively that he can beat Wonder of You. Also, if the ability is active for long enough, then souls from other universes start melding with yours. It's really scary, as shown in the bottom left. But anyhow, Green Day and possibly Oasis. So this is like a duo stand fight by the tail end of part 5. Oasis is the ability to just kind of liquefy anything around the user. So that whole suit that guy's wearing, that's the stand, right? And then Green Day is that thing on the left, and it just kind of shoots a bunch of spores out into the air. And once those spores are on you, if you lower your elevation, then mold will start rapidly growing on your body and consuming you really fast. This is another one of those, one that doesn't have to be close. He can just, because this thing had a range of pretty much all of Rome, and it caused absolute pandemonium, but I don't even think he would understand what was going on before he lost his hand or just got really, really horribly injured. I think Green Day definitively, but maybe Oasis, same combo. I imagine Calamity could still happen while he's underground, but who knows. We got Notorious B.I.G. So this is what a lot of people call a death stand, where the user has to die in order for the ability to activate. So over on the left, you see Carne. Don't worry about him. He gets shot and killed literally 2 seconds into his fight. But Notorious B.I.G. is the real one, right? So he tracks movement, specifically I think the fastest moving thing in the room. Any damage that he takes only makes him larger. And even in the fight that he was in, he wasn't even defeated. He was knocked into the ocean, where he just kind of turned into this sea monster type being, where he just chased waves and boats that went by. But no, I think Notorious B.I.G. is kind of the antithesis of what Wonder of You is, where he'll just track him and go after him until, eventually he gets him, because any calamity that hits this guy will just make him larger and an even worse threat. But moving on, we have Rolling Stones. So this is a stand at the very end of part 5 during the Sleeping Slaves arc, where it's this flashback that says, oh, all of these characters were fated to die way before they met Giorno. Not way before, but like right before they met Giorno. But the stand functions on its own accord. It will just kind of figure out that people around it are about to die and then make its way to them. The user didn't even know what he had was a stand, right? He just thought it was this weird thing that kept happening to him. And the moment that Toru is fated to die, there's really nothing that he could do, because if he tries to break that rock, it's just gonna fate more people to die. That's kind of what happened when Mista broke the rock. But that's a whole different lesson. I'll let Mr. Metas get into that. We have part 6, Stone Ocean. Now, this is my favorite part of JoJo's. Don't beat me to death. Sit down, put the rock down. Moving on. We got 2/3 of Pucci, that being White Snake and Sea Moon. You got random bullshit Go, because White Snake is exactly that. White Snake is random bullshit Go. So, in the arc that he is introduced in, he sends Jolene and Jotaro to this crazy, like, dream world and slowly digests them with goo. Never does that again. He can create illusions. He can disguise himself to be other people. He can stick his fingers in your head and, like, steal your vision. But his main thing is discs. But he would have to be close to steal Toru's, stand disc. Really strange, but cool main villain stand. Sea Moon is the stand evolution after White Snake, and it has the ability to control gravity. I think, overall, since gravity is what the concept of fate is referred to in Part 6, I think Sea Moon just completely has the ability to control fate. That's a different lesson for a different time. I'm not going to completely get into that, but its main thing is controlling gravity. So while the stand is active in Cape Canaveral, all of it seems like it's tilted on its side, so everybody's falling sideways. It's a crazy visual. But the other thing that Sea Moon does is anything that the stand touches with his hands will turn inside out. So one punch from this guy will turn Toru inside out. I think Wonder View versus Sea Moon specifically is such an easy layup because he can manipulate gravity in such a way that he makes the stand or Toru fall to him, just kind of fall into his fist and turned inside out. This is also up for discussion, but Made in Heaven is the ability to speed up time for everything except living beings. So, like, just, cars start driving faster and, like, sliding doors open and close quicker. And that's the whole thing that Toru and Wonder View kind of have domain over, is just things, non-living things and events happening around you. I think, all in all, Made in Heaven versus Wonder View would be Toru kicking his own ass. But that's another thing up for discussion with Mr. Metas. But anyway, we have Weather Report. Bar none, one of the most open-ended and most overpowered stands in this series. But he has a massive, massive range, and he's able to repeat even hyper-specific weather events, like, having it rain poisonous frogs and all the other stuff that he does. He controls the goddamn weather, right? And I have a quote here, he could even destroy the ozone layer if he wanted, which is really scary. And that's not even to mention heavy weather. So when Weather gets his memories back, which, keep in mind, this is when, regular Weather Report, that's all amnesiac Weather Report. But when he gets his memories back, Then he gets Weather Report, which is even scarier than the rest of it, where just rainbows start appearing and snails start manifesting, and none of it, I guess, is real. Hey, so Editor Shmem here, in the future, after I record this, the thing I say about heavy weather, where none of what's happening, like people turning into snails and none of that being real, that's not quite right. The snails themselves are questionable in reality, because the explanation is that the rainbows are giving you subliminal messages telling you that you are turning into a snail. So that kind of forces your body to evolve. I think people are actually turning into snails in this arc. But yeah, so save your comment, save your breath. But if you touch the rainbows, then you start to believe that you're turning into a snail. And, you know, if Toru were to walk into a rainbow, he's a snail now. And that's just it. Anyhow, Bohemian Rhapsody. One of the most powerful stands in the entire series, with the dumbest loophole ever. It's like two kids making up shit on a playground. And one of them just says, nuh-uh. So, Bohemian Rhapsody is the ability to bring any fictional character or work of art to life. And if you are a fan of that character, then your soul splits off and you're forced to live a part of that story. So, this old man here in the center is turning into the big bad wolf. You got Astro Boy, and I want to say that's Voltron. Up there, you got Spider-Man up in the top right corner. Believe it or not, in the bottom right, that's Pinocchio. And then the scariest one of all, I think, is Van Gogh, where if you're a fan of Van Gogh, which I think most people are, your soul will split off and then you'll shoot yourself in the head twice. You know, just like Vincent Van Gogh. But the loophole and the thing that defeats this, which I don't think Toru would ever think to come up with because he's just so uncreative, right, is Weather forced Van Gogh to draw up this character called Putback, which basically clears the whole world of fictional characters and puts everything back to life, which, as I said previously, is two kids playing on a playground and one of them just says, no, that doesn't happen. But anyway, moving on. Next up, we got Highway to Hell. So this is pretty basic, just damage reflection. It will also kind of make you experience what the user's feeling, it looks like. But that's really all it is to it. In order for you to kill a person with this stand, you kind of have to also kill yourself, which that's what Thunder McQueen tries to do the entire time. Which, thank God, I hate Highway to Hell. I'm going to be so real. This is one of the worst side character introduction arcs, I think, in the entire series. But anyway, Thunder McQueen can finally die. Moving on. So next up, we got Yo-Yo Ma. So I'm going to be so real. This stand, single-handedly, is why this whole slideshow exists. Because I had the passing thought of, yeah, I think Yo-Yo Ma could beat Wonder View. And then I thought about it. How many more stands could do that? And here we have it today. So, Yo-Yo Ma is immortal as long as the user is alive. He has potentially limitless range. We have no idea how far DNG got from Yo-Yo Ma while he... This is going to sound really confusing. When Yo-Yo Ma was following Jolene and Anasui on the boat, we have no idea how far they got. And also, DNG was actively probably being taken the opposite direction from them in an ambulance because the whole, bear trap thing that happened. But Yo-Yo Ma's actual ability, besides immortality, is this invisible acidic spit attack that will just kind of rapidly dissolve parts of your body. But besides that, his personality is an ability in itself where he lulls you into this false sense of security by basically being this helpful little goober, and eventually you'll just ignore him, and that is what you don't want to do, because then he'll start doing the acid attack thing. But yeah, I think this is another one of he walks up to Wonder of You and nothing happens. Not to the extent that, like, GER has, but, you know, he'll take some hits, but he'll just keep, like, crawling and walking towards him until eventually he's like, all right, I mean, I guess you're harmless. And then he's melted. So, there you have it. Anyway, Part 7, Steel Ball Run. We got the Infinite Rotation, Tusk Act 4, which is pretty much the same reason why Soft and Wet Go Beyond was able to do what it did. It's just the Infinite Rotation. But Tusk Act 4, what it does, if you're hit by this, every atom in your body starts spinning forever across every universe. And only being hit by a nail bullet spinning in the opposite direction will nullify this effect. There's also the properties that it moves in stopped time, which is crazy. But that doesn't really matter because Wonder of You doesn't do that. But yeah, I think just purely because this is another Infinite Rotation type deal, it's pretty easy layup. But we have D4C and Love Train. So Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, just base that ability. Allows Funny Valentine to pass into neighboring worlds and even bring other versions of himself to help fight, you know, whoever he's fighting at the time. And if he takes fatal damage, so long as he passes between two things, which is a very loose requirement, he just dumps water on himself, and him between that water and the floor is able to transport himself to a different reality. He essentially has infinite lives, but that does not stop at just him, because he can bring other versions of other people with him. And if those people come in contact with the other versions of themselves, they will start being pulled towards each other and be annihilated, both of them. Which is not good for Toru or Wonder of You. But what's also really bad with this fight specifically is if there's two Wonder of Yous, that's bad for pretty much everybody, including themselves, because they can't pursue each other, because then calamity is going to happen to them. But that's a whole thing in itself. But Love Train is the ability for Funny Valentine to sit in this beam of light that will transport any misfortune elsewhere. So he's pretty much able... This is another example of Funny Valentine just walks at him. Because all of the calamity is just being passed elsewhere. But definitely a 2 Wonder of You fight is just going to end in awful calamity and probably self-annihilation. But anyway, I digress. Moving on. We have Alternate Universe of the World. It's just the world, but again, it stops time and it punches. I thought it was important to at least make a slide for it, but you know, I know. Moving on. Next up, we got Mandem. So this is just the ability to rewind time, I believe 7 seconds. This fight would take forever. Hours. It would take days. It would take weeks, probably. But it would very much be like playing a video game on an emulator. So you know when you're playing Mega Man on an emulator and you just keep taking damage, but you rewind and then dodge that instance of damage, and then you take damage somewhere else, so you rewind a little bit further and then you dodge that too, and so on and so forth. That's Mandem versus Wonder of You. That's him just dodging, bobbing and weaving through calamity and learning, alright, well, there's this plane door crashing behind me, and then, you know, there's a truck about to hit me, and there's a cigarette flying into my eye. It's a whole mess. Mandem versus Wonder of You. Next we got Sugar Mountain. So I want to make it very clear. The little girl here in the center of the screen, that's not the user. That is what I would describe as the stand. What do I mean by that? Well, the user is the tree. And I wouldn't, well, she is not necessarily the stand, but there's nothing else that I could probably describe her as besides what she calls herself, which is the guardian. But her name is Sugar Mountain, which is passed on to everybody else. I'll get to that in a moment. This stand is so meticulous. It has so many rules and a couple trials. And if you do not do the thing that these trials ask of you, then you will either have your intestines ripped out or you'll be put in a queue. Let me explain, because I had to research this one. Around this tree are various bodies of water, and if you drop an object into one of those, like puddles or whatever, then the item disappears, and this girl, this guardian, will present the item to you, as well as 2 other valuables. For example, a hunk of gold and a diamond, and she will ask you, which one did you drop? If you tell the truth and say, the item that you dropped is the item that you dropped, then you get everything. You get all 3 of the items presented. And if you lie and try to say, yeah, I dropped the, brick of gold, then vines come out of the tree and rip out your tongue and organs. So that's not good. But that's the first trial. If you tell the truth and get all 3 items, then the second trial begins. The second trial is that you now have to get rid of or use up all of those items before sundown, or else you turn into a fruit. Like an apple? Like a banana? No. Fruit is a very loose term. You become pretty much one of these heads in the tree. That's the Q that I mentioned. No, not like all tomorrows. Q with 2 UEs. You're waiting in the tree MV is pretty much what I'm going to call it, where you're in this line for hundreds upon thousands of years waiting to become the next Sugar Mountain Guardian. But I think ultimately Toru would not pass even the first one. Like the first trial, he's getting his guts ripped out. His greed is biblical, man. And he's not going to make it through this one. Anyway, Part 8 JoJolion, this is the part that Wonder of You is from. Look, there he is in that bubble. There's a few in this. Besides Soft and Wet Go Beyond, there's not another slide here for him. But anyway, we have Alternate Universe Killer Queen because, of course, the only difference with this one being that he can make multiple smaller sheer heart attacks. That's really the only difference. He doesn't have Bites the Dust either. But yeah, just thought I would include this. Next up we have Shakedown Road. So this is a street that the citizens of Morio have discovered has a very interesting ability to move things rapidly, from one side to another using these leaves. The thing that moves this stuff around is these little green goobers up in the top left, right? So on the top right, for example, you can see that's a drug deal. These last 2 panels down here, what's happening is Josuke is being pulled and crashing into this fish tank behind him, and then being moved back to where he was previously so that this old guy here on the right can extort him for money, because he's going to have this whole sob story where he broke his fish tank and killed his turtle. Shakedown Road it's used by the citizens of Morio to steal money from others and sell drugs and do really nefarious acts. So this is not necessarily a stand that can defeat Wonder of You. This is a stand that can more so defeat Toru financially. I think he would have his entire empire grifted away from him before he even knew what was going on. But anyway, we have Ozone Baby. The Lego White House is very important. So let me get to that. The stand is activated by burying that little Lego White House. I imagine it could be something else, but there's something fascinating about the symbolism behind why it is that object. Again, that's another lesson for another day. I'm going to let Mr. Metas get into that. But the main ability of Ozone Baby is to build pressure in all of the enclosed spaces around where the Lego White House is buried. That is the craziest thing I've ever said. It rapidly builds pressure in enclosed spaces, including like containers, and obviously building up pressure in an enclosed space with a living being in it, that's not good. But what's even worse than building up pressure is going outside and that pressure kind of refluctuating, and then you succumb to pressure sickness, which is even worse. So you kind of have to play this game of opening doors and closing doors and just being an awful pain. And I don't know how easy of a layup this is going to be between Ozone Baby and Wonder View, but the range of this stand seems pretty large, and all in all, if Toru can't find the Lego White House buried somewhere, he's screwed. Next up, we have the Milagro Man, which this is yet another, I would call a financial defeat, but in a very different way. I think it would be death by too much money. So the stand has also no user to kill. I don't think I mentioned that with Shakedown Road, but the stand is what is described more so as a curse than anything else. But pretty much how this stand works is it takes the form of a bill with this 13R serial number at the end of it. If you put that bill in a big duffel bag with other bills, every bill in the bag will suddenly have that serial number, and any attempts to spend that money will get it returned back to you plus interest. So you're making more money than what you spent, and eventually you'll have so much cash that you don't know what to do with, and you can't spend it because you'll just get it back plus more money, that you'll eventually be crushed by the weight of your funds. But of course, as I said previously, Toru's greed is just so biblical that his money would crush him, and he'd probably be happy about it. I don't know. And lastly, we have Part 9, the JoJo Lands. Now, this is the current ongoing part, and we only have a few major arcs done, and there's not really anything that I could think of as far as stands that I think definitively in this part would defeat Wonder View. I'm thinking maybe Bag's Groove, but that's questionable. I don't know. But I thought I would throw something else on here anyway, and I'm talking about November Rain. I have zero evidence to back this up, but it has already been shown that he can deflect bullets. He can increase his range by splashing water, and he has executed a man using one droplet. I'm only talking about the fight between him and Bobby Jean in the bathroom. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, it will beat Wonder View. Mark my words, come back to this and say, oh my god, you were right. I can't believe my substitute teacher called it. Anyway, so class, in conclusion, in order to defeat the embodiment of Calamity, you must either be immortal, be an inanimate object incapable of pursuing, possess some kind of time manipulation, have an ability that reflects damage, possess an insta-kill move, be able to pull the stand or user towards you, or simply, if nothing else, have Gold Experience Requiem. Well, that's it. Yeah, it seems like you are free to go a little early today, but hopefully Mr. Meadows will be feeling a little bit better, but Thanks. You're free to go.